More and more serious, high-quality poets have been connecting up with me and, more importantly, opening up about their goals, their dreams, and their poetry. The view count stats may still be modest, but the vibes are fucking massive. A huge shout out to folks like Nick, Sella, Devin, Rowan, Angel, Lilith, Robin, all you others who aren't on the tip of my tongue, who have given me the special gift of your trust and your poetry over the years. I'm deeply grateful to have you in my life. But this channel didn't start as a means to cherry pick the brilliant and the ambitious. It's not how I roll. This is a channel for all the poets. I'm here to challenge you, all of you. I'm here to ride you a little harder, push you out of your comfort zone, and provoke you into productive crises. How else are you going to reach your potential? So today, as a way to give back to all my OGs, I'm here to ask you a tough question. One I asked myself a lot when I was starting out. Why poetry? As in, why do you write poetry? On a basic level, those of you that give the Sylvia Plath answer, I want to become famous and immortal, which is also, by the way, the Horace answer, a monument more lasting than bronze, are giving an answer that on its face sounds dumb. I mean, why not pursue acting? Is it because you get stage fright? You suck at memorizing lines? You have a face for radio? Why not musician, artist, dancer? Why not cast a wider net? Con artist, influencer, looking right at you. Startup CEO, preacher. Why poet? The most successful poets in the world make chump change compared to a B-grade actor. They don't have a lot of influence either. We don't live in Horace's golden age of Roman verse, nor in Plath's fading smile of Tony Beacon Hill. So, baby, if it's not about the fame, it's not about the fortune, it's not about the glory, what's it all about? Sure, you can tell yourself it's because poetry is important, or even better, I love this one, poetry is important to me. But that doesn't really answer why you chose poetry over anything else. Why not crochet, bird watching, golf, painting miniatures, ukulele, ham radio, belly dancing, or a million other damn things? All these things could be at least as useful as poetry because the bar's pretty low here, guys. It's like when my son was in second grade, he wrestled and I drove him all over the state to go to meets. The fucking coaches would say, it's not about wrestling. It's about building character. Jesus Christ, people. Couldn't the same be said about basketball or fucking ping pong or even math homework? You know the real reason why so many people get into poetry? Because it requires zero special equipment, zero musical or really any talent, and it's something you can do by yourself. Can you think of any other thing that's fun to do by yourself? You want to become an actor? You gotta audition. A musician? Well, you gotta learn the instrument. A painter? I mean, I suppose that's something you can try to teach yourself if you're a fucking idiot. You know what you need to try poetry? A pen, a napkin, and an ego. You know why I know this? Because I'm one of you. I couldn't hack it as a rock drummer, but I sure as shit wasn't ready to give up on the creative life. No more waiting for late bandmates at the rehearsal space. No more hauling amps and cramming bass drums into rental vans. No more neighbors screaming at me to stop thrashing it in my living room. No more band drama and stupid arguments. All done. Fini. Which, if you're like me, sounds like a great deal. In poetry, you don't depend on anyone else. You write better, and then eventually you succeed, right? Over this time running a channel, I've talked to hundreds of aspiring poets. Anonymous handles DM me on the regular to ask me to look at their stuff or just come at me with their wild ideas. Who knows what they're looking for? Validation? Perhaps I'm going to discover them? What I've learned is poetry beginners aren't like beginners in belly dancing. When you start belly dancing, the first damn thing you're going to do is look in a mirror. And you're going to find out that what you're doing does not look at all like it's supposed to. Now, you'd think the same thing would happen with poetry. You'd write a poem and you read it over and you'd realize, God, this is so fugly. But that's not what happens. I could speculate as to why, and we could discuss how difficult it is to learn the skill of close reading. But in a world where NPR has just told me that a 10-year-old boy is selling his artwork for hundreds of thousands of dollars, any such discussion must acknowledge the elephant in the room. Genius. Creativity is commonly constructed as naturally in opposition to discipline. Beginning poets are conditioned to expect that the freer and more uninhibited they are, the more profound their output will be. That somewhere inside of themselves, they have this unique voice or vision that's just waiting to be unlocked. That to be a true original, you must, as Steve Jobs so famously capitalized on, think different. Yep, according to this school of thought, understanding poetry will actually hinder you. As you read more, you'll become conditioned by the ideas that come before you, and you'll become a conformist. You'll end up recapitulating the same ideas and conventions as earlier poets. And what poetry really needs is not another fucking insider. Poetry needs someone to shake things up. Poetry needs a reboot. And beginners all think they are exactly the person to do it. Okay, so I admit it's theoretically possible to write interesting or even really interesting poetry without becoming some type of Encyclopedia Brown. Dr. Johnson said famously of Shakespeare, small Latin and less Greek. And similar criticisms could be leveled at many very accomplished poets. My boy Yeats was an art school dropout. Obviously, the type of scholarship and learning a great poet must undertake is of a slightly different character than pro forma academic excellence. Otherwise, everyone with a PhD in English would automatically be a great poet, which is, of course, fucking preposterous. But I digress. Champions of the genius school don't give a shit about Shakespeare typically. They're much more interested in talking about two poets in particular, Emily Dickinson and William Blake. These two poets meet their criteria of genius precisely because they received little or no recognition during their lifetimes. Now, these two are very different cases from very different eras and very different countries and class backgrounds and genders and sexualities and all that great stuff. Blake certainly wanted to be famous and celebrated and felt his poetry deserved to be recognized, though it never was while he lived and breathed. Dickinson's art and life was, profoundly shaped by the mores of her New England Brahmin and evangelical milieu, which, despite the sexism she struggled against, restricted both her ability and interest in achieving worldly renown. Which doesn't mean Dickinson didn't want her poetry to be enjoyed and respected by those whose opinions interested her, but she clearly felt it was both wrong and practically impossible for her to seek anything more than a very local and very selected notoriety. Again, I digress. Granted, Blake and Dickinson were not egghead academics. They were interested in the worlds of the spirit and pioneers of interiority. They expanded the territory of what's possible in English by charting vast new landscapes nobody had ever laid eyes on. They really were geniuses. Just not any more genius than Wordsworth or Millay or Chaucer or Marianne Moore, all of whom received plenty of acknowledgement during their lifetimes. The reason why people are drawn to those two in particular is not because of their poetry, it's because of the myth. It's because deep down, people wish that when they die as total unknowns, maybe, just maybe, their poetry could be discovered too, which gives them the excuse not to confront their own weaknesses and limitations in their work today. And let's be quite clear, when you're dead, you won't know or care about your legacy anyway. As Shakespeare said, "Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole?" Poetry isn't for when you're dead. Poetry is for your today. It's now. Right now. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Who cares why you started writing poetry? That guy or gal is dead now, as dead as Alexander's bunghole. The dude who's writing now knows poetry is a mix of what's received from before with what's available now, in the meter of breaths. You don't know how many inhalations you'll get, and poetry, more than any other discipline, requires you to become aware of that. I want to extract every ounce of inspiration before my last exhalation. I want to make the most of it. I honor those who came before me, but it's the community we create, you and me together, that inspires me the most. Thank you for joining me, and let's continue to explore and discover wherever it leads.